All right, everyone, welcome back to Talkin' Soccer. We are going to talk the World Cup. It's been a wild past few days. I didn't get a chance to really cover the U.S. game yesterday on this channel because I was taking the train back from back from St. Louis to Kansas City to the home studio, hence the better lighting, the better audio, all that good stuff. So thanks for being patient with me. I'm going to talk about the U.S. game after I talk about today's games because I've got a bit to say about it, as I'm sure you could expect. I wrote an article about it yesterday, and I've had some more time just to think things over and really look ahead to the England game on Friday. But first, folks, I woke up at 4 a.m. today, and at first I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I value my sanity more, but we're in for a treat as Saudi Arabia upset Argentina, the number 3 ranked FIFA country. Saudi Arabia, the number 51st ranked FIFA country, 2-1. And this is a wild game, and they're already, the narrative is being spun, anytime Messi comes up short in the World Cup, that Argentina will, drop out. But frankly, if I was Mexico, I would not be willing to play Argentina this weekend. That's about to be a bloodbath, I think. And it's not like Argentina were outplayed here as well. Let's get that straight. Argentina lose 2-1, but they had a goal ruled offside by an incremental VAR call in the 28th minute. They had 2 more offside goals called back late. They could have had, 4 goals that just weren't counted in this game because of offsides. And that's a testament to Saudi Arabia's offside trap more than anything. But it just goes to show you how close, especially throughout the first half, and then after Saudi Arabia scored their 2 goals, Argentina were to really drawing this thing level and going ahead. But that's not how soccer is played. You don't win soccer by your XG. You win via putting balls in the back of the net. So, of course, Argentina scored first through a Messi pen in the 10th minute. Definitely a deserved penalty. Messi hits it cleanly, hits it calmly, and it's 1-0. In the 28th minute, they have a goal ruled off by a VAR. Lautaro Martinez, and this was like a pure goal too, that he just chips the keeper off a beautiful feed, and it's kind of a crime that this is called back, but he was off. There was a correct offsides call. All these VAR calls, as close as they've been, it's automatic. And even though I would like to have better angles on the actual feed, oftentimes they show the defender closest to the attacker who was ruled offsides and not the defender who was the last defender. Like there's a far defender that via the kind of TV angle, it looked like he might have played him on. The other angle that I've seen since then has, clearly shown that he was still offside, but I would like to see that angle during the game. I think it would go a long way just to helping people understand what the fuck is going on here. So we head into the second half, Argentina up 1-0. And you think, you're feeling pretty good for Argentina. You're the big time favorites here. You're in the driver's seat. Then a couple of wild goals from Saudi Arabia in the 49th minute and the 53rd minute. To give you an idea of how wild these goals were, Argentina finished this game with 0.15 expected goals. They had 3 total shots. It just so happened that one shot on this play was blocked, and just 2 fantastically placed shots. And all right, you could say, maybe this is a rough game. If you're Martinez, maybe you want to have those. But I don't know if they're just the kind of well-placed shots that in a World Cup, tensions are high. It was not a great game for Argentina's backline anyway. And Di Maria, DePaul, Gomez, all of them kind of had rough games, mediocre performances. Really, the only players that played well for Argentina were Paredes and Messi. And I think some of that is probably down to just, pressing hard. And Argentina have that narrative already spun that they, don't show up in big tournaments sometimes, especially the World Cup. So I still think they'll make it out of the group stage, but they lose here 2-1 after dominating possession, after having 15 total shots, 2.26 expected goals, and that's not counting the goals that were just called offsides in the run of play. This is a dominating performance by Argentina that they don't have the result to show for. I think if you're Mexico, now that's assuming that Memo Ochoa lets in a goal, but if you're Mexico, you're a little bit worried about a extremely motivated Argentina that's going to feel hard done by this game coming in. So Argentina dropped points. Saudi Arabia 3 points at the top of the table because of this next game. Mexico versus Poland. This is the Chicago Derby, of course. And one of those games where, especially coming off of the Denmark-Tunisia game, which I'll talk about next, 0-0 draw, but still an exciting game. I think this is one of those games where like both teams are really prodding at each other, and the 0-0 isn't necessarily because of, poor attacking, because both teams didn't want to take chances. It was because both defenses were pretty strong down the middle. Shot totals, Mexico had 11 total shots to Poland 6. Now, those were low XG attempts, so they were limited from outside the box, from your really kind of low percentage opportunities, which both defenses, that's great for them. And I was a little bit worried for Mexico. I think I called this a draw in my Dimers preview, but Mexico had not looked great in the buildup. Obviously, if you're watching CONCACAF, you know that they haven't been good. Tata Martino is definitely on the hot seat. Poland haven't been great in the lead up either, but Robert Lewandowski is the ultimate difference maker, right? He's just that kind of goal scorer that should be able to make the difference in a game of two tight teams that are both struggling coming in. But that wasn't to be the case, as Robert Lewandowski gets a kind of soft penalty call, goes to the line, steps up to take it. Memo Ochoa, this is kind of great. If I can find the video, I'll post it here while I'm talking about. But Memo Ochoa kind of, feigns like he's going to go to the right, and then is able to kind of come across his body to the left. Or feigns like he's going to go to the left, come across his body to the right, which is the corner that Lewandowski picked. And he's able to get there totally outstretched, get his palm on it, keep the ball out, Mexico clear it. And that's kind of the difference maker. So with that missed penalty, Poland, that was kind of their only real chance of this game. They had 6 total shots, 1 big chance being that penalty, and they're outdone by World Cup Memo Ochoa. And who among us hasn't been outdone by World Cup Memo Ochoa? But, drawing points, 1-1. So the group looking a little bit topsy-turvy. Group C now is Saudi Arabia, top of the group. Poland and Mexico right there with 1 point, and Argentina underneath. That's just wild now. You would think, coming into this that Poland would be able to beat Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia are going to have some confidence out of this game, and their defensive structure is what vaulted them forward. Their defensive structure is what allowed Argentina to, not be able to come back into this game. Poland have had trouble scoring. Poland have had trouble kind of getting chances, but does Lewandowski come in, off of that miss as a redemption game? There's a lot of narratives going into this second run of games that I think are going to make Group C the most interesting group in the World Cup, at least as of now. Off of that, let's talk about Group D. Of course, Denmark versus Tunisia. Denmark, the 10th ranked team, coming into Tunisia's 30th. And this game was a classic snooze fest. It's kind of one of those games where when somebody tells you they think soccer is boring, and you're like, you're just not watching the games. This is probably the one game that they caught on TV at the time, and it just turned them off the sport forever. Because, again, another one of those games where Denmark had 11 total shots, Tunisia had 13, but they're all relatively low XG attempts. Denmark actually had 1.6 expected goals to Tunisia's 0.92. So you can maybe, count that up to Schmeichel and Dahmen having good games, but a lot of that is in the second half as well. Denmark had 1.42 expected goals in the second half to 0.18 in the first. That is a team that knows they're better than their opponent, getting frustrated by not scoring at that point into the second half. Denmark ended up having 5 shots on target to Tunisia's 1 shot on target, and Tunisia ended up having 7 blocked shots over the course of this game. So if you're watching things, if you're watching the build-up, if you're watching the game within the game, of course it's exciting. But when you're a casual fan focused on the score and focused on these exciting attack and counterattacks and these attacking opportunities, this game was probably not the game for you. But some great performances, of course, from Christian Eriksen, who, even though they weren't able to get on the score sheet, Eriksen had a beauty of a ball from kind of the top circle that just curls into the far corner, and Damon's able to get there somehow. This is like a perfectly placed ball from a guy who's just been on fire lately. And honestly, something that we need to remember is that this is Eriksen's first international tournament since the Euros back with Denmark. So that's a big moment, and he came and stepped up. Like, that's got to definitely be in the nerves, right? If you're Denmark and remembering what happened at your last major tournament, I think that plays into it a little bit. Of course, big game from Denmark's back three of Christensen, Jor, and Anderson as well. And then, of course, Kasper Schmeichel was great as always. Tunisia, you could look at, of course, Damen had a great game. Their back line was solid. Their middle three, Laduni and Shkiri, were great as well. Like, 2 midfielders that you weren't necessarily expecting to play to the level that they played today. And it's a 0-0 game. What more can you say? Both teams split the points. Let's move on to the other game in Group D, which was France versus Australia. This game I thought was going to be a pretty big blowout. I talked about in my Dimers piece that the over was 3.5 goals, smashed that over. And ultimately they get there, but it was a bit of an unorthodox way, as Australia comes out and scores first in the 9th minute through Goodwin on the counterattack. Assist from Matthew Leckie. And you're thinking, after watching this Argentina game earlier today, that, oh fuck, what is happening? This is not your average Tuesday. But not to fear, France, even without Karim Benzema, are still just such a buzzsaw. Adrien Rabiot had a fantastic game. He scores in the 27th minute off a Theo Hernandez assist. He then assists in the 32nd minute Olivier Giroud's first goal, which is like, all right, so you're down 1-0, kind of a punch to the face from the big underdogs here, and then you score in the 27th, and again 5 minutes later. It's okay, at that point, it's done. That's game over. And really, this is like, it's just bad strategy from Australia. So they get the goal early, but then they, instead of adjusting their game plan, they keep insisting on playing out the back, and they just don't have the defensemen to do this. You look at the game from Atkinson, from Sutar, from Rouse, from Beach, and none of them had a good game. Of course, you feel bad for Matthew Ryan, the keeper, but when your defense in front of you is just turning over balls to Mbappe and Giroud, what can you do, I ask? What can you do? So, other goals from Kylian Mbappe. He got his goal. He wanted more. Kylian Mbappe wanted more than one goal here. But he scores his first goal off a header assisted by Ousmane Dembele in the 68th minute. Olivier Giroud in the 71st minute, assisted from Kylian Mbappe. And that's 4-1. This game could have easily been like 7-1 with some of the chances that were missed. I'm happy that Mbappe got his goal, though, because he was definitely pressing for it. In general, it's just a dominating performance from France. Expected goals were 4.21 in this game, and they scored on pace for that. You don't see that very often. It just tells you that even without the Ballon d'Or winner in Benzema, I don't think I put enough stock in how good this France team is. Like, looking at everyone else, knowing that typically the team that won the last World Cup is in a bit of trouble in the next one. But this is a good team. And you look at, Theo Hernandez coming in, Kingsley Coman coming in off your bench, Fofana coming in off your bench, and that doesn't even touch Eduardo Camavinga, doesn't even touch Guendouzi, doesn't even touch Rafael Varane. Like, there are options upon options upon options on this bench. This France team is just dangerous. A lot more dangerous than some of the teams above them, say like Belgium, for instance. I think Belgium is kind of top heavier than we're used to them being, and it's kind of their last run with their golden era. So that'll be interesting to watch in tomorrow's games. But with that, let's move backwards a bit in time. Let's talk about the U.S. draw loss. U.S. draw 1-1 to Wales. Well, I'm off my rocker. U.S. draw 1-1 to Wales, and a game that felt bittersweet. You know, you go up 1-0 early, you miss opportunities, you take your foot off the gas, Wales come back because you're tired, you make a mistake, Walker Zimmerman just runs through Gareth Bale in the box, gives up that pen, and it's just heartbreaking. But they put themselves in that situation. So, of course, USA's first game back at the World Cup since missing out in 2018. You got to understand those emotions with a young team that hasn't, played with this level of pressure. It's a young team. We often forget. I guess it gets talked about a lot, but that level of experience come 2026 is going to pay off. But for the amount of talent in this team, they're just underperforming, right? So wild swings of emotion and genuinely a tale of two halves. They had early success attacking down the Welsh flanks. They thought that both Antony, both Tim Weah, Pulisic at times, especially in that first half, and I think he forced things in the second, but Pulisic had a good game. Don't let people tell you otherwise. And Anthony Robinson had a great game as well. That was definitely on display here tonight. And I think that's always our ability to progress play down the wings for how good, for how creative our wingers are. I think it's definitely something we should, keep exploiting. I thought our midfield did great, especially in that first half. I'm going to keep saying that, but Musa, McKennie, Adams was freaking immense throughout this game. But I think, for all that inexperience, they were not bailed out by their manager. For everything that Greg Berhalter did well in setting the starting lineup, playing Tim Weah out wide over, Brendan Aronson or whatever have you, whatever the selection may have been. Waiting until the 60th minute to put in your first sub when this team had clearly lit gas. Like this team, a lot of players lit gas throughout this second half, way before these subs were made. And when you're that tired, if you look at Walker Zimmerman's mistake, it's because you're tired and he's making a bad decision because he, mentally, when you're that gassed, you're not thinking straight, right? And that's a manager's job to be able to have that succession plan. And Greg wasn't ready for that. And I think it does probably speak to Greg Berhalter's inexperience as a World Cup coach. I think that this was a big mistake. Like, you should have been ready for this. Not to mention, not playing Gio Reyna, which who knows what happened there. Greg Berhalter says that they kept him out because of tightness. Gio Reyna says that he was 100%. I typically probably believe that it was something the trainer said, or I don't know. I don't think that's some weird conspiracy against Gio Reyna, but it just speaks to maybe the lack of communication going on between Berhalter and the players. But the players seem tight, and this game isn't going to just completely untie them. But it just feels like a missed opportunity. They should have been able to put this game to bed. But they come into the second half, they take their foot off the gas, they start kind of shithousing, wasting time down the stretch of this game when you had the momentum. I don't think we can speak enough to that change in game plan that they came into the second half with. They were simply outmanaged throughout that second half. Wales adjusted their game plan. They started playing more direct. They brought in bigger players to be more of a target. And when you look at the U.S. going 66 minutes before bringing in Brendan Aronson for a Weston McKennie who looked like he was banged up heading into to halftime. Like, I don't know how you look at Weston McKennie visibly limping, coming off of an injury, obviously not entirely fit, and you don't replace him until the 66th minute. Then you don't replace anyone else until you bring in Yedlin, Haji Wright, and Kellen Acosta all together in the 74th minute, when Musa looked like he might have been banged up. And then you bring in Jordan Morris in the 88th minute. Those subs aren't going to do a fucking thing, Greg. And luckily, Kellen Acosta saves a goal at the end of the game, gets a yellow for his efforts, but that was a very veteran foul. But you should have made those subs 10 minutes before you did, at the very least. That's a big mistake. That is a big managerial mistake that you can't necessarily put on the players. Why? I don't know. I thought Josh Sargent played well. He had a header that rattled off the post in the first half from a Tim Weah cross that I thought was very nice. Walker Zimmerman, of course, like I said, had a bit of a rough mistake, but up until that point, he played well. Turner did all he could. Tim Ream and Anthony Robinson, I thought, played fantastic. Actually, Tim Ream, I thought, was really, really good. I hope him playing the full 90. And, like, that's the thing, too. Like, Ream and Zimmerman playing the full 90, you could easily manage that by replacing them. You know, we have a good center back that we brought that could have easily... Cameron Carter-Vickers, you know, there's arguments for him to be starting. When you have a clearly laboring center back who has worked very hard throughout the game, you should reward him by getting him some rest, putting in another capable center back that can not make the mistake late in the game. I think that's, you save the lead, you're not hurting anyone's feelings. I don't know, man. Anyway, ends up drawing 1-1, which isn't the end of the world. They can still get out of the group, but now you're looking at that England game almost like you need to get a point off England. And I don't want to be in that position after how just as dominant of a performance they put in. Like, you go into the Iran game, maybe it works out in your favor that you're going into an already somewhat defeated Iran. But you're needing a result from that game regardless. And that's a tough position to be in. You get a point. That's good. That's the main goal here. But you could have had 3 if you just would have managed the game a little bit better. Anyways, let me know what you thought about today's World Cup action down in the comments. Of course, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Give me a subscribe if this is your first time finding my channel. All of that good stuff. We'll talk again tomorrow. I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m., so give me some space here, right? It's been a busy week for your boy. Taking the train back. I spent the week in St. Louis after the St. Louis City game, of course, and I was running on fumes today, but we made it through the day, and I appreciate you all sticking with me here. But as always, I'll see you folks very soon.